Can I ask you a couple of other questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So please can you explain to us a bit about how you wrote the book and the kind of style for, let's say, a technically interested person in agriculture or in maybe just normal electronics. Will they be able to understand the book?
Yeah, everybody can understand the book. It's really an easy to read. The book includes many examples coming from our daily life. May I give you an example of that? One key issue when it comes to understanding quantum theory is that in quantum theory, seemingly empty space-time contains a form of energy. But we can't see that energy. And now, somehow, this invisible energy interacts with an atom. And that is sort of a little bit difficult to visualize. Now, an analog example to get an understanding of that is a following example. Just imagine you're looking at the sea, and that the sea consists of water. Now let's say we cannot see the water because it's transparent. You can see through the water. All that we can see is the iceberg swimming on that water. So the iceberg and the water, they both consist of H2O. It's the same kind of molecule. And with space-time and an atom, it's the same thing. A piece of material consists of the same energy than the energy within seemingly empty space-time. But the energy within seemingly empty space-time is invisible. Here we can see it. So it's like mass is like frozen space-time energy, if you wish. And I use in the book many examples of this kind, so you can get an understanding what actually this means or what a broken symmetry means. That sounds very technically. So, for example, if you take the meaning of a broken symmetry in quantum mechanics, you know, it's sort of in the first moment it looks like something that is very complicated, but it's absolutely simple. A broken symmetry is nothing else than a pressure difference in space-time, like in a pressure gauge. You go diving underwater, and what you measure with the pressure gauge is a pressure difference between the water pressure outside and the lower pressure with inside your real pressure gauge. So so I used many examples of that kind, and that makes it really an easy to read book.
Fantastic, thank you. Could you talk to us a little bit about the use of illustrations and things in the book? Let me get the dog. Fuck. Who is that? Hey, doggy! Come on. Up, up. Bongo. So, could you talk to us about the illustrations that you've created in the book? Maybe tell us a little bit about wooden books and tell us about the process of meeting the illustrators and who's helped you with the production of the book. Maybe I should put it like that. Tell us the story of who's helped you with the production of the book and in terms of like wooden books and John Martineau.
Yeah, in Glastonbury I met with John Martineau, who is the owner of Wooden Books, and he does several. He has several science writers in his in his company, and one of his illustrators is Matt Tweed, and Matt Tweed is an excellent. He can do drawings, hand drawings in a good way. And it was important to put into the book many illustrations and drawings, because the illustration is a thought experiment, a Gedankenexperiment, and that gives you a picture of the process. And I found the written word only it's too abstract, it's too complex to understand the topic, and it was my intention to come up with as many simple examples as possible, and to put this also and to translate it into a picture, so one has, you know, something visual that you can look at, and that gives you a much better understanding of the process.
Fantastic. And what are your ideas for publication of the book? Have you got any ideas where you want this to go? Can you hear that dog?
Yeah, it was him. Yeah.
Oh.
Stop. Well, the book is a must-read for every technically interested person. I mean, take the electric engineer, the chemist, the physicist, the guy who tunes his engines, the car mechanic, the aircraft pilot. I mean, all of that. I mean, the how do you say, the meteorologist, yeah, who checks the weather. I mean, only the phenomenon how blizzards are created in a thunderstorm relates to electricity. The electromagnetic interaction is the dominant interaction in our life. It is the reason why my hand does not fall through this leg. So, and we are using electric energy everywhere, in the kitchen, in the living room, in our car. So to get an understanding what electromagnetism is most basic. It can't actually get more basic than that. And the theory that is used today to understand, or that describes what electricity is and how, you know, the electric flow of energy works in an electric circuit and so on, and in a torch, for example, comes from James Clerk Maxwell. And Maxwell's theory from the 1860s is really not up to date anymore. I mean, we're living in the 21st century, and things go so quick, and the development is so quick. I mean, if you buy a computer and it's 5 years old, it's out of date. You can't use it anymore. So, I mean, why use a theory from the 1860s? I think that's ridiculous. We thought, well, there is a newer theory that describes how electric energy flows, and that is namely the quantum electrodynamics theory. But quantum electrodynamics theory has never been applied to common electric systems. And that is an interesting thing, because common electric systems, that is what matters in our life. And I had the interest to get a better understanding of how a regular conventional electric system works that is in my living room. I wanted to know how does the energy flow from the hydroelectric power plant to my light in the living room. That is what plays a role for me anyway. And yeah, and when you look at it from the quantum electrodynamics point of view, this whole energy transfer process is different. Now, just to give you a short comparison, if you look at it from the eyes of Maxwell, from the old theory that is still established, they say that the energy comes from the hydroelectric power station directly to that light. So the bottom line is that power station supplies energy to my house. And that is simply wrong. That is not what happens. We are using the flow of water in the hydroelectric power plant, or we are burning coal in the coal burning power plant to do one thing only. And that is to generate an energetic pressure difference within space-time in the power station. And once you create this pressure difference, it's like opening a door. And once the door is open, we call it breaking the symmetry of the quantum vacuum. So once the door is open, the energy flows in from space-time into the circuit along the transmission lines to our light in the living room, and then the light glows. So there's always an interaction between the material aspect of something and empty space-time, and then to the material aspect, which is clear. If you take two permanent magnets repelling each other, for example, you have a permanent magnet, you have space-time and a permanent magnet. So there's a conversion of put in energy from the permanent magnet to space-time, and then from space-time to the permanent magnet. And yeah, this space-time interaction is completely missing in the Maxwellian equations, and that's why one must ask the question, do the Maxwellian equations describe the energy conversion process in a common electric system in a correct way? And we have come to the conclusion that this is not the case. We need a totally new approach. And yeah, and so what I have done is I took one key information from the quantum electrodynamics theory, and I started with an empty piece of paper. I took the fact it's an experimentally proven fact that the virtual particle, or anyway a particle coming from seemingly empty space-time, that creates the electromagnetic interaction. And when applying that, the outcome is intriguing. And following this line is that another new class of electromagnetic systems can be developed. And these systems are called quantum open systems, meaning these are energetically open systems like every other open system as well. I mean, a solar cell is, for example, an open system. It uses the sunlight as an external source of energy. And these quantum open systems, they do the same thing. They use space-time, the virtual particles in space-time, as an external source of energy. And the good thing about it, this the virtual energy in space-time is unlimited at every point in space, and therefore it cannot be wasted, and it's emission-free. And there is no question, experiments prove that this is there and that it can be extracted in an economically interesting way, and therefore it's just a question of time until we will switch over from fossil and nuclear fuel to quantum vacuum energy extraction technologies.
Can I ask a little bit? You were comparing the crystal cell at its present state of development to computer circuitry and things in the 60s. Could you talk a little bit about how the situation now is similar to understanding the circuit? So.
You mean the cell itself, how it's built up and how the energy flows in the cell, or what do you mean in relation to the 60s?
So saying, maybe if you can say that the situation that we're in now is like the computers in the 50s.
Oh, I see.
How
Yeah.
the circuit works,
Yeah.
It's taken us a long time to get
here. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. The situation with the crystal cell and other developments that are sort of in a similar level can be compared to the development of the computer. The development of the computer started, well, I think it started even in the 50s, but let's say we are now in the 1960s. So this is the birth of a new technological era. It's the birth of a whole new understanding of what energy is and how it flows in an electric circuit. The crystal cell that is standing here on the table is a first walking attempt towards that direction. It took me or us 14 years to find out that the electric current, or at least a significant part of the electric current from that cell that you see right now, right here, does not come from electrochemical effects or the conversion from heat or anything else. It comes from coherent quantum fluctuations, causing coherent vibrations, and these vibrations are used to energize free electrons, and two diodes that are within the crystal cell, they enforce the electrons to travel into one direction only, and that creates the steady electric current. And it took over a decade to understand that this is really the case, and to interpret test data in a wrong way happens all the time. So we really did extensive efforts to get that right, and and only by getting the crystal cell tested by independent people, if you give them out to several professors and doctors and electric engineers, and they do extensive testing, and they all come to the same conclusion, and they were skeptical. I mean, they were not believing in my hypothesis in the beginning at all. Well, then one must think or come to the conclusion, well, something is going on here. So that's why we will continue to follow this path, and I have no doubt in the meantime that this hypothesis can be further developed in such a way that every energetic application on the world can be supplied with a crystal cell or similar technology. Anyway, a technology extracting energy from the quantum vacuum by so-called asymmetric means is the future of energy generation. There is no question about it. It's just a question of money and time until this is going to come now.
Could you talk a bit about some of the other quantum vacuum energy extraction technologies out there? Maybe tell us a bit about Terawatt and any what the state of the art is and the sort of developments happening.
Yeah, you just mentioned Terawatt. Terawatt is From my view, the company which has developed a magnetic motor system in the furthest way, they are at a quite a fast stage. That magnetic motor was tested, for example, by the TÜV Rheinland, and the TÜV is in Germany an accepted measuring facility, and they measured that the permanent magnet motor by terawatt puts out several times more energy at the output than was input before in an observable form. The missing energy or surplus of energy derives from another external source, in this case namely the quantum vacuum, because the field comes from the magnetic field of the permanent magnet itself. And since the magnetic field from a permanent magnet exists in space-time as a broken symmetry, and a broken symmetry is made up of permanently newly emerging virtual particles, in this way energy is extracted from the virtual particle in a direct way. The team of Terawatt is also exceptionally interesting. This technology is obviously backed by the FBI and CIA. They have a financial director from Los Alamos Laboratories in their team, as well as the director of the Colorado State University. So I can't find a fraud in relation with Terawatt, so I have to assume that this is true. And by the way, all the measurement data from the TÜV you can download from the website from the TÜV directly, not from Terawatt. So yeah, this is going to come. There's no question about it. There are several other people in the free energy scene that obviously observe these effects. Another person is Professor Turtur in Germany, who teaches electrotechnics at the University of Applied Sciences in Wolfenbüttel. And he has developed an electromechanical system that converts an electrostatic field into mechanical energy. And the output of the mechanical output energy is about 50 times higher than the input energy. And so that's interesting, and it's theoretically described. It has been replicated at another university in Berlin. So I don't see why this should be a fraud as well. And the problem why these technologies are still not on the television stations and not discussed broadly is a very simple one. The established scientific community has significant problems to understand this approach. The reason for this is a simple one. The established scientific community does not provide a model that explains how to extract an excess amount of energy from the quantum vacuum. And as long as you don't have the theory to understand it, you have extreme difficulties to understand it. As Einstein said, for example, the theory determines what you see. Meaning, if you don't have the theory, you can't see it. Or, as I mentioned before, what was the quote on the video?
You can't change a problem.
Yeah, you can't change. You can't solve a problem by the same way of thinking by which it was created, and
it's easier to split an atom than to change an opinion.
yeah. That was another comment related to that. That it's no. You said it's more difficult to change an established opinion than to destroy an atom. And we are humans, we are programmed by the experiences, how we have been brought up, and we are taught a certain model in the university, and once that is in your mind, it's in the mind. And that is the reason why it's not coming out. And it's just a question of time until the first person is on the market with an economically usable product. We will have such a product very soon. In 2014 we are coming out into the market. And so things are developing the right ways, and slowly but safely this is coming together.
Don't you already have a product on the market?
Yes, this is the first product. These are 2 crystal cells. They weigh about 300 grams each. The ambient voltage of one cell is about 1.5 volts. And here they are put in series, so they have 3 volts. and then when the LED is attached, the voltage is dropped to 2.7 volts roughly, and yeah, that gives about 3-4 milliwatts of permanent power to power this LED. Now, what can be done is, and that's what we are planning right now, to take 2 or 3 of these cells, and these cells, they charge a capacitor or a little battery, and then in the evening, if you want to have light from a little table light, you can discharge the capacitor and you got a reasonable reading light for a few hours. And yeah, that is practically and totally independent of any other source of energy. You are independent of the sunlight, and that will be one of our first products. The second product is supplying smoke detectors with crystal cells, because smoke detectors only need very little powers, and similar technologies, sensor applications where sensors just need very little electric energy. Another application that is already existing is from an artist friend of mine called Tilman Kurumrei in Germany. He has made a sculpture, and the sculpture has 2 LEDs behind each eye, and the eyes are glowing, and that's an interesting application. And another friend from my partner Charlie Fraser is here in London. His company is called Violet Darkling, and we are planning to make a walking stick with a stone, jewelry stone on top, which is sort of there's an LED below the stone which is shining on it, and then the light is sort of spreading to all sides, and the 2 crystal cells are in this walking stick. And so yeah, for in the field of arts, there are applications for that already.
Fantastic. With Professor Turter, you wouldn't be able to explain to camera, like if we make a little video for YouTube, how his quantum vacuum energy extraction process works.
That is only explainable with a graphic and a picture, because it's it's difficult. It's easy when you have the picture, but it's difficult to visualize that.
You could do it with your laptop present. Otherwise, I could overlay it over the top of you talking.
Well, Turto has that on the website already. I didn't want to make a YouTube video with his theory now.
Okay. All right. So. We've talked about the other products on market. We've talked about your products that you're bringing onto market. What do you think in terms of the long-term scalability of all of this? If you've got this ex-director of the CIA and FBI, only other guy ever to be director of both of them, coming to market with a product from Terawatt, how are you going to be able to compete, or do you see yourself in this cooperative model working as a kind of a more open system for the people rather than a centralized system, or how do you feel you're positioned in the market?
Well, first of all, power-wise, the crystal cell can be scaled up power-wise to any power level. So, and the crystal cell is, from my view anyway, more practicable, because we do not produce mechanical energy. We are producing electric direct current, and that is the most practical energy that one can imagine. So from there, I have no doubts. On the long run, the crystal cell is the state-of-the-art technology. It's simply right from the beginning. It's the better thing. Terawatt might be in the beginning more interesting because they have higher power levels, and with the crystal cell it will probably take longer to get to reach same power levels, but that is just a question of time, because the physical principle between Terawatt and the crystal cell is actually the same, but just made on the molecular level. And we will, by material science, we will reach in a few years or one day we will catch the right material combinations and frequencies, and to get this correct interactive molecular oscillation that will boost the power. In relation to selling the crystal cell, the distribution, I see the crystal cell as a normal company setup where we have a centralized license company that gives out the licenses. That will be the research laboratory for vacuum energy. And then in license, other countries, other people can produce the crystal cell as they like. So that's why it's distributed.
Thank you very much. That's amazing. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about with regards to the book and your work, and implore people to get involved, or maybe you can tell us why you got involved and why you think that other people should get involved, at this stage,
Well, when I sort of grew up in my teenager years, I realized very early that mankind has a general problem, and that is the environmental pollution. And that was always an issue that I disliked. And I was always looking for a possibility to do something about that. And but I never found sort of the right thing. And the main polluter is the energy industry on one hand. On the other hand, the theory behind these energy systems can also be used not to explain how an electric circuit works, but it can also be used how mental phenomena work, like morphogenetic fields or telepathy and things like that. So the application of the theory is very broad, and it gives me generally a better understanding of how the world works. How do I work? How does nature work? And so that's a great tool. So that book has an information that is important to everyone. It addresses spiritual phenomena. You can explain how homeopathic medicine works. You could even explain how astrology works. You can explain how telepathy works, how the communication between life forms, that this communication first of all exists, and you can visualize the physical mechanism and that in simple terms. And that is new. As long as man understands himself as a system that is individual and isolated from its environment, we will always have a tendency of a certain egoism. And in that moment where you see that everything is really connected, that you are just a part, a gear wheel in a huge system, that we are anyway, but I mean really in a physical sense. I mean the environment here in this living room has now an influence on my physical properties in my body and the other way around, because all atoms radiate the electromagnetic fields with the speed of light towards my body and my body out again. So there is an interaction going on. Of course, I don't feel that interaction, and it has not got such a great significance on a short term. But since this radiation is permanent, on the long term it has an effect, and that's why Feng Shui, for example, looks at the geometric arrangement of the furniture, of where the house is placed, where is the river, and so on, to create a geometrical environment that radiates onto your body in such a way that it is of benefit to you. And once we understand that we are all connected in a direct way and at every moment, mankind will slowly move more and more from a me game towards a we game. And mankind is doing that already since many thousands of years. Here in Europe we had little tribes, now we have big societies, now we have even European Union, and mankind is going to unite. The whole human being race is going to come together, and the internet was a first huge step, or not a first step, but a huge step towards that goal. And we are coming together, the one way or the other. And and this theory helps, really helps to visualize why and how we are connected and how close and intensive this connection actually is. Yeah.
And do you think the world's ready for it, to get all this power? If they can, won't people put it behind weapons, or do you think it will?
I don't think. Well, you never know what's going to happen, but mankind is ready for it. Well, first of all, energy-wise, what the usage of energy is, nothing changes at all. I mean, it doesn't matter if I receive my energy in the living room from the nuclear power station or from a free energy device or from a solar cell. I mean, the light glows the same as before. So the direct influence on how I use energy, it will not change anything in the first moment. But the good thing is that the energy, first of all, becomes a lot cheaper. That will be of great benefit for the general economy. And that again will be of great benefit for everyone. And the other benefit is it's 100% environmentally friendly. So it's not only a lot cheaper, it's totally emission free. And in the long run, that will change, it will create such a positive karma, such a positive vibe, that we are going into a society like it is presented in Star Trek. In Star Trek in the 24th century, there's no money anymore because people have enough energy. So you're not working for energy anymore. You're not working for food. This is a principle that will dissolve. In the future, we will work for different issues. Maybe you will get I don't know, society points or something like that. You're working yourself up in the society, you're working in research or whatever. And this money system will probably change. Anyway, when energy is nearly, it won't be totally free. I mean, the energy is free, but you still have to build the engines, and you need to buy the engine, and so the conversion of energy will still cost a little bit of money. But as I say, it's going to be far more cheaper than now, because digging out the oil out of several kilometers in the soil is a hell of a mission, and then driving it around or shipping it around in big tankers costs a lot of money. And nuclear power plants are, well, if you look at the energy management in a nuclear power station, I can only say it's madness. I mean, if you look at a nuclear fuel rod, which contains 100% of nuclear energy, then you put this nuclear fuel rod into the reactor, and after a few years, you have burnt 5% of this energy. Now, there's still 95% of that energy inside the rod, but it's not being used anymore. But something else has happened. The nuclear fuel rod, when it was new, contained radioactive materials which are bad for the environment. Now, 5 years later, when you have burnt down 5% of the energy, you have created much more nuclear waste. So a nuclear power plant does not convert one radioactive material into another or something like that. It takes a little bit of radioactivity and makes a huge amount of radioactivity, but a radioactivity which is even much more dangerous, because plutonium is much more poisonous than uranium. And so it's a dirt-producing machine. And and where to put these nuclear fuel rods. But if you then look at the energy management in a nuclear power station, it's madness. Out of this 5% of energy that is used from the nuclear fuel rod, you have 100% of heat energy. Now, 60% of this heat energy is just blown into the atmosphere just for fun in the power station. That's all. 40% hit the grid. And by conversion in the transformers and relays and the high transmission lines, transforming it into high voltage and from high voltage to low voltage, until it arrives in the home, another 33% are lost. They're gone. So from 100% of the energy that is generated in the power station, only 7% arrive in my plug. That's crazy. So what we need to do is we have to move away from the centralized energy generation to a decentralized energy generation. I see it in two steps. Step one is we will have a free energy device in the basement, in the cellar of each house, and that supplies the energy for every house. So the distance between the power station and the load is very short. And the shorter it is, the better it is, because energy should be produced exactly there where it's needed. And the next stage is that you will not have a power station in the cellar anymore at all. There won't be any power station. Every light bulb will have a little chip inside the light bulb that delivers the energy for the light bulb. Every washing machine will have its own power supply. You will not have any plugs in the walls anymore. You will have no wiring in the house anymore. You will have no transmission lines. All that will vanish. Electricity will be produced exactly there where the load is, a few centimeters away at the most. And that makes most sense. That's where it goes to.
So what do you think of the established power structures that may not be willing to lose their position of control and their lifestyles, that the kind of this new decentralized economy portends? Is there a way that this can be made to benefit those groups? I mean,
you have to partner with these groups, of course. It does not make sense to aggressively destroy the petrol power or gas power industry. And that's not my intention, of course. I mean, if I had such a technology, and I don't think anyone would do that. The best thing is to work with these and to create together a plan which is looking at a 10 or 15 years phase, and in these 15 years we switch over from fuel burning to free energy in a slow and safe way so it doesn't harm anyone. And the energy infrastructures of the big companies, they are great and they should be used. Why to create new ones? And once we have shifted to free energy, we can still sell the copper cables, we can use them for something else. So we will always find solutions, another solutions, if we change from one system to the other. But one thing is clear, in that moment when the first technology is on the market, the others have to follow whether they like it or not. It is just the question, when will the first person be on the market with a free energy device? Now what we are going to do is, and that's why I'm actually quite happy with this crystal cell, we will be on the market in 2014. But the power output of the crystal cell is so low that it can only be used in art pieces and in maybe an LED torch or something. So we will not be interfering, not even with the battery market. We will not be interfering with the nuclear or fuel burning industry. So we will not be interfering with anyone. And so that's actually the best way to start with it. And experience has shown things usually start small and then grow. And what you see here on the table, this is the computer in the 1960s. And this can develop quick, because now we have all the computer techniques, we have the physics, we have the chemistry. So I have no doubt that with the right manpower in the research laboratory and the right funds, we will not need a decade. It's only a few years until we will be able to increase the power density many-fold. I want to leave it open now how much, because we simply don't know it. I mean, the higher the better. To power cars, for example, it's very far away. I mean, we need tens of thousands times of higher energy or power density that we have today, but that can be achieved. That's not the point. And the research plan outlines what our plan is. It shows the detail of our research, and we're looking for the first 2 years phase at a funding of about £2 million.
So we should get the book, right?
Yeah.
So tell us. So get the book, learn about it, support the laboratory.
Yeah, sure. That's the larger part, or nearly practically all the money from the book is going into the research, of course. And so if you're buying the book, you're supporting the research, or you can also buy one of these. It's sort of just for decoration. A light, and but it's interesting. You can, if you buy such a crystal cell setup, you support the research, and if you have one of these, you can disattach the wires from the cell, and you can investigate, for example, the high frequency behavior. You can put the cell in a Faraday cage of we tried magnetic shieldings, whatever shielding. You will find a broadband radio signal coming from that cell. And if you use certain filters to analyze that signal, you will find very interesting phenomena that are described in the book, by the way, as well. And these phenomena clearly point to that the generated electric energy is in direct connection to oscillations of the molecules within the crystals. And therefore we are tapping into another source of energy which is or which has a non-chemical nature.
Fantastic. So if you could just give us one last plug to summarize it, why should people be buying the book, and what can they expect to find in it, and what how will it be useful to them in their life? You know, will it and or maybe even the cooperative, like invite people to join the cooperative and say, like, if you're really serious, you're really dedicated, this is your life's calling, and you're good at chemistry and physics, and you want to get involved in the manufacture, the cooperative is there, and we can have some interviews. And you know, this is a movement which you can work with. You know, it will be putting you under licenses and things, but this is something which is ready for people to start to get involved in a serious way, but only if you're serious. So get the book and learn about it.
Well, yeah, if you buy the book, first of all, you will learn about what electricity is. You will learn about what energy is. This plays a most fundamental role in our daily life because we are also all dealing with electromagnetic systems. I mean, if I feel the sunshine on my skin warming me, it's an electromagnetic phenomena. And to get a better understanding about what we are dealing here with, I think that's interesting. So for every physicist, chemist, electric engineer, every technically interested person, the book is a must read. The book is also helpful to understand, as I mentioned before, when it comes to mental phenomena or homeopathy, or it just takes the whole topic to the next stage. When buying the book, you support our cooperative, that's the Sustainable Media Cooperative, and the Research Laboratory for Vacuum Energy. You're supporting the development of the crystal cell, which generates a permanent or steady electric current in an emission-free way. And that is what we need. You can also buy Crystal Cell, and that also will support the research. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's sort of, when it repeats, it's...
It's good, it's good. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, please have a look at the Kickstarter page. You can get a hard copy of the book for £30, or a cheaper copy which is only electronically. Then we have a small sticker that can go onto your laptop or wherever for a few pounds, and the prices and all that is on the website. And you can also get into the cooperative, become a member, and you can join the research. You can buy such a cell, for example, and put online the measurement data from the cell in our cooperative, and then you can discuss and compare your measurement data with others, so we can together learn and research these phenomena and get a better understanding for it. And as I said, the crystal cell is the first walking attempt into that direction, and I presented the most important measurement data in the book without interpreting them. And I found that I did that on purpose because I want to leave the meaning open, so we can learn together which hypothesis might be or is the best.
Okay, fantastic. Something about manufacturing. You've licensed the cooperative to manufacture something, so, the crystal cells. So we're able to train people up there to manufacture, and do you think it would be possible to train out more people to set up little satellites, and then that pays back royalties back to the research laboratory?
Of course, everyone who wants to produce crystal cells is welcome to get a license. The license just looks at a certain royalty fee that can be paid. You will be trained in the Sustainable Media Cooperative here in England how to make these crystal cells, and then you can put up your own manufacturing facility, and you can design your own products if you like. You can sell them worldwide, or likewise, if you would like to have an exclusive license for a certain region in a certain country, you can have that as well. We are very flexible in relation to our business model, so we get the business model out to anyone as he likes it. There are different models. One model is a usual franchise model, like McDonald's has it, for example. The other one is a non-competitive model, which is totally open on a non-exclusive basis. We are open to everyone. We will see what the clients or the licensee prefers to do, and it's our intention to spread this information as broadly as possible, and it's primarily looking at just getting this out and getting the environment cleaned up. Of course, money must be made as well. We need a lot of money for the research in the long run, because there are other projects emerging as well. Once you understand the process of vacuum energy extraction, you will quickly see that extracting a surplus of energy from the quantum vacuum, that is only one thing you can do. There are concrete ideas about propulsion technologies, how to break Newton's third law, for example, that would create a propulsion system with which you can accelerate, for example, with 1 or 2 Gs or 3 Gs permanently towards space-time. Such a spaceship that had such a propulsion device would need about 3.5 hours to the moon, or about 2 days to Mars, without hassle, without being in a hurry or whatever. It's just when you permanently accelerate half the way, and then half the way you hit the brakes, you are there in a very quickly way. It's a simple calculation. If the spaceship that needed 6 days to get to the moon accelerated for 8 minutes, and then it's like 5 days waiting, and then you're there. I mean, why accelerate for 8 minutes? Let's accelerate for 2 hours and hit the brakes for 2 hours, and you're on the moon. It's as simple as that. And there is a straightforward and clear model at hand in the research laboratory for vacuum energy, how such a propulsion system can work. There are other ideas which are relating to an electromagnetic shielding system, like we know that from Star Trek, or a so-called tractor beam, where it's sort of like an electromagnetic pair of pliers with which you can grab things. And the experimental foundations for these technologies are already there. So the doability is not the question. The question is just getting the right setup, and how such a setup can look is known to us. It is now the objective just to build them and find the right materials and frequencies that create the electromagnetic effects that are required. And what I want to do is to create a big research facility where we research all of these technologies at the same place, which doesn't necessarily mean that we can have several places where we can do research, but it's more practical, of course, to have the research centralized, just to get all the manpower together. So, these technologies will be of great benefit for mankind, and I think that's just a nice thing to work on.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. A little bit about the kinds of civilizations that we can be living in, like if we're not spending all day working for fuel for our cars and to heat and power our homes, which is where a lot of our money goes. How can we live? What type of societies can we have?
Yeah, well, if energy is free, all products will, if energy is free from the quantum vacuum, the electric energy in your home will be very cheap, because first of all, energy is decentralized. Second, you're only paying for the production of the power plant that extracts energy from space-time, and that has to be also, serviced or renewed after a decade or 10 decades, whatever. So energy is not going to be free, but it's going to be much, much cheaper. And the environmental pollution is reduced to an absolute minimum. I mean, 99.9% of the environmental pollution is just going to be gone. And in the long run, that will lead to a society where money has a different role, because when energy is there and houses can be manufactured automatically by robots, and that's just a few decades away. I mean, many building sites have already full automized construction robots, and only the sort of the details are done by humans. So these things are coming. That's just a question of time. So we in 100 years we will living in an environment where many things are going totally automatically, and energy is very cheap and anyway available in any amount we need. So the question is, what are we working for? If we, and for what have a war? The only reason for war would be power. But in the past it was not about power, it was about I need access to the water, I need access to the food. So it was due to the limitation of resources that what started the wars a few billion years ago. I mean, it is 3.7 billion years ago life started on Earth, and since then you have that war about limited resources. So what is changing now is a paradigm shift that is 3.7 billion years old. That is coming to an end in this century, in the 21st century. Because we are not dependent anymore on limited resources. Energy from the vacuum is limitless, and therefore this is the beginning of a new era in history. And it's the biggest and most important evolutionary step of life on Earth. And so where's society going to? It's maybe it's going into scientific society, and a society that generates a lot of art, and well, who knows what's going to happen? I can't foresee the future. It's hard to say. Maybe new problems will develop, or new things. And anyway, in a few hundred years, the human society will be in a position which is very, very different from today. And also free energy from the vacuum has deep-reaching effects on our culture, onto many aspects of our culture.
How about food and water? Still those problems. We can have energy, but our access to food and water, will it change the way that we farm and the way that I mean, maybe we'll be spending our time doing art and things, but we can maybe spend more time working with nature.
Yeah, maybe we will spend more time with nature. Maybe not. Maybe, yeah, we will be in nature, but food will be grown by robots. That's how I see it. And and the robots will grow food in a much healthier way than it is done. The industrial agriculture that we have today is an extreme monocultural layout or setup that uses a lot of fertilizers that are bad for the environment and bad for the plants and bad for our health. That will vanish because this industrialized agriculture we only have because of cost reasons. And why do we have to save costs? Because we don't have enough manpower. But if we have robots that run on free energy, I mean, we don't need fertilizers because every field can have a few robots that clean the tomatoes every day with a cloth or something like that, you know, and gets rid of the insects. So you don't need you don't need to spray the plants anymore. So robots will take over many new fields, and that will make it more clean.
I've got to explain biological fertilizers to you. A healthy plant has its own natural immune system, so bugs and things don't really bother it. You wouldn't need a robot to clean it with a cloth. Nature's already the most perfectly evolved robot ever that runs on free energy. And yeah.
Well, if you have a field and you want to make it a bit more effective, you need something that looks after the field. I mean, that's just how it is.
Sure, but we are the best robots ever running on free energy.
Yes, yes, of course, of course.
And it's beautiful fun. I will grow you a beautiful garden and bring you lovely food with a free energy centre in the middle. We'll grow gardens around you and provide you with lovely food. I love to do that, so we can try.
Okay.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, welcome.
Anything else? Anything else?
No, I think that's about it.
Okay, thanks, dude. Thank you so much. Bye. All right. Okay. It's out of batteries and it's out of tape. That's 2 hours.
Okay.
Okay, I think. But healthy organic plants, they protect themselves.
Yeah, sure. That's